to another time of Lenten spirituality. I just want to take a minute to talk about kind of the close of Lent. We are heading towards the finish line. Um, it's only actually technically a few more days until Lent is over, although our Lenten fasts, I mean, many of us traditionally keep them through Easter Sunday. However, Lent, I guess various traditions believe different things about when Lent actually ends, but most traditionally, Lent ends on Palm Sunday, and then as we head into Holy Week becomes the focus of the spiritual calendar, liturgical calendar, and so actually Palm Sunday on the church calendar has two different kind of movements. We have movement 1, which is the palms, and then movement 2, which is the Passion of Christ, and heads into Holy Week. And so each day of Holy Week, there's a different theme that we focus on in the liturgical calendar. Yeah, so if you're like any human, Lent has been rewarding. Lent has been frustrating, anxiety giving. It has been, you need constant reminders, right? In fact, just the other day, this past Friday, I completely forgot. I mean, I'm a Protestant. I grew up not really even practicing Lent. Lenten fast had become more of a tradition in my adulthood. And so as a result, our kids are actually way better at it than I am, especially remembering the Lenten fast, which I think is pretty cool. And so this year we decided as a family we were going to practice, which we'd never done before, practice no meat Fridays or just do fish. So this past Friday, I completely forgot. I made a pot roast in my crock pot and, just enjoyed a delicious meat covered meal. And I invited the kids down to eat dinner. And my son Caleb looks at me, looks at the dish, and he's like, "Dad, it's no meat Friday." What are we doing? And I'm like, oops, I completely forgot today was Friday and that we weren't eating meat through Lent. And so I confessed my sins, received forgiveness, and went and got some shrimp fish tacos. So it happens, right? And that's actually a big part of Lent, is that we can't do it. We need God. We need his forgiveness. We need his grace, that even if we don't, follow through on what we say we're going to do, we're still welcome in his presence. We're still forgiven. And so that is something that we should remember. So we're headed towards the finish line. So I encourage you to finish strong. And then think about if you added, I encourage everybody through Lent to not only fast from something, but to also add something spiritual to their Lenten practice. And I'd encourage you to keep that going, to whatever you added to the practice. I added a prayer time to my day, and it's been super rewarding, and I want to keep that going. And so I'd encourage you to whatever you added, to keep that going. If you didn't add, maybe consider from Easter, for Eastertide. We forget this in our culture too, that the 40 days after Easter, as we head towards Pentecost, is called Eastertide. And so maybe you commit to adding a spiritual practice to your life during Eastertide from from Easter until Pentecost in May. And so, I encourage you with that. I think that could be an important thing. Adding a spiritual practice never hurt anybody. It could be anything, really. Spiritual practices to add could be, prayer, could be meditation. It could be maybe you get a prayer book. There's lots of prayer books. You could get maybe a music set list. We here at St. Paul's, we have a lot of kind of worship music, praise music we sing. You could, listen to that set list every day. You could journal. You could, maybe find a retreat to go on. There's all sorts of things. I'd encourage you to during Eastertide to add a spiritual practice, and then be thinking about that. And then also take advantage of your Holy Week. A Holy Week is, I think, an important week. It's one that I like to take seriously. And so we have Palm Sunday. So if you're not coming or haven't planned on coming on Palm Sunday, I encourage you to come on Palm Sunday. The themes of triumph, the themes of humility, the themes of Jesus coming in on a donkey into as the victorious king, right? Kind of the opposite of how we see kings in movies and, in our own culture. But no king that I've ever seen, in culturally speaking, is riding on a donkey except for Jesus. So humility. Then we have Holy Monday. And then it's traditionally known as the day that Jesus cleanses the temple. Then we have Holy Tuesday, where Jesus does some teaching in the temple. He does some, preparation, teaching. Then we have Spy Wednesday, the Holy Wednesday. It's really where Passion Week really gets going, is on Wednesday, the time of when the day Jesus was traditionally betrayed by Judas. And then we have Maundy Thursday, which we're having a service here in the social hall at 6 p.m. on Maundy Thursday to kind of remember the Last Supper. We'll take the Eucharist together, and just kind of the theme of the Last Supper of the washing of feet, of serving. So join us for that. And then Good Friday, we'll have our Good Friday service here as well at 7:30 p.m. here in the sanctuary. And obviously Good Friday reminds us of Christ's suffering, of his taking up the cross. And then Holy Saturday, it's a beautiful day, often overlooked, but a day of just silence, where God was silent. It's a day of waiting, the day Christ descends into hell to take care of business for us. And then Easter Sunday, we celebrate here. And we're going to join with the Methodist Church, 6:30 a.m. for sunrise service. You could join us for that over at Rutgers Gardens by the cabin. And then 10 a.m. our service back here at St. Paul's, our traditional Easter celebration. So Holy Week is an important week on the liturgical calendar, just to remember Christ's sacrifice, to enter into the way of Christ in a very intentional way. I'm going to try to share daily throughout that time, just some thoughts kind of like this, if not daily, then a few times throughout the week to kind of point us to Jesus. And so thanks for joining. I hope you can join us for some of the Holy Week activities we have, and just enter into a fresh, renewed spirituality throughout this Easter Holy Week season. God bless.